On the mysterious island of Borneo in Indonesia, a chilling series of discoveries unfolds. One after another, strange bodies are found, each with a head and a body that belong to two completely different people. Local communities believe these unsettling incidents are the result of a dark curse cast by the spirits of the jungle. Yet others suspect that behind it all lies a dangerous network of illegal trafficking. To uncover the truth, a determined female police officer steps into the heart of this mystery. But what happens next? Will she succeed in revealing the real secret behind these horrifying events? Or will she too vanish, swallowed by the shadows of the jungle's sinister spirits? To find out, we dive into today's explanation of a hidden gem, an underrated Indonesian movie titled Borderless Fog, inspired by true events. On the Borneo island along the Indo-Malaysian border, dawn has just broken. At a small tea shop, people begin to gather when suddenly a heavy thud echoes from above, the sound of something crashing onto the roof from a tree. Shock spreads through the crowd as they realize it is a body. Curious onlookers rush forward, and while trying to move it, the head rolls away and tumbles across the border to the other side. Within an hour, both Malaysian and Indonesian police arrive. Since the body lies on the Indonesian side of the border, the Malaysian officers breathe a sigh of relief and leave. The Indonesian officer, Panka, shows clear frustration. Border disputes with local groups are nothing new. Yet these recurring deaths, month after month, have become a serious headache. This time, as soon as the case is filed, Inspector Sanja is dispatched from Jakarta. At the station, Panka's displeasure at her arrival is obvious from their very first meeting. The body is identified, but the situation is unlike the previous 5 cases. The head and the body belong to 2 different people. The head is from a border patrol officer, while the body belongs to someone else. Panka hesitates to explain further, but Officer Thomas steps in with the answer. 6 weeks earlier, a missing report had been filed for a member of the Dayak indigenous community on Borneo Island. The body is his name is Juing, and his skin is covered in tattoos, proof that he was an activist for the Dayak people. Although the body is Juing's, the head belongs to Rashik, and the injuries suggest the cause of death is a heavy blow from a blunt object. At the police station, the family of Juing arrives. His nephew, Silas, vents his anger at the officers, accusing them of negligence. For him, this lack of responsibility is nothing new. Filing a missing report had brought no results. The family believes the police themselves are behind these incidents, since from the very beginning the government has remained a silent spectator. As the day progresses, Sanja and Thomas head to the crime scene. To the police, these deaths may seem ordinary, but to the locals, each one carries the mark of the jungle's sinister spirits, whom they call the 4 spirits. They insist that no ordinary human could possibly hang an entire body high up in such massive trees. Sanja begins her investigation by speaking with Baran, the shop owner near the border. To understand the context, we need to know about the Dayak people. The jungle is their homeland, and they protect it like a mother. Their lives are deeply tied to the forest and rivers. Historically, the Dayak once took enemy heads during war to prove honor and bravery. By the 1960s, when palm oil companies began seizing land, the Indonesian government did not help the Dayak. Instead, for profit, they sold the land to corporations. From then on, the Dayak became strongly anti-government. Among them was a legendary communist leader, a figure whispered about in local folklore, never captured by the police. Some say he vanished into the jungle and became one with the 4 spirits. Inside the jungle, there is an abandoned palm oil factory where, on full moon nights, locals claim the cries of dead children can still be heard, victims of communist persecution. Before leaving, Sanja gives Buran her number, asking him to report anything suspicious. Meanwhile, at night, an unknown figure is seen burning someone's head. The next morning, as Sanja returns from the market, she finds an old letter secretly placed in her car. It is from Malaysian police, dated 3 weeks earlier, demanding quick action regarding Rashik. Panka dismisses it as unimportant, but Sanja realizes why the Dayak distrust the authorities. Later, she secretly learns from a Malaysian officer about the death of a tattooed man, whose identity remains unknown. On her way back from Malaysia, Sanja stops at a restaurant. There, she notices two sisters, Esther and Lintang, communicating in sign language. She introduces herself, surprised to learn that they are not tourists but workers. Like many children, they have come here to work. Before Sanja can learn more, a woman named Umi arrives and takes the sisters away. Meanwhile, Silas goes into the jungle to collect wood, but ends up in a fight with border guards before disappearing. When his family files a complaint at the station, the police suspect that Silas has joined a local gang called Tayo and that they might be using him for these activities. The next day, Sanja arrests Silas from their hideout and warns him that revenge cannot be achieved through such actions. Instead, she urges him to place his trust in them. That same day, Sanja receives a sudden message from Baran, who meets her and claims that the forest spirit appeared in his dream, revealing that Juing and Rashik were not killed by the same person. No matter how strongly the locals believe in the existence of the forest spirit, Thomas and Sanja refuse to accept his words. It is now the night of the full moon. The jungle feels unusually calm compared to other nights. Umi, along with Lintang and others, attempts to cross the border, but the rushing river blocks the road, forcing them to stop the car. As Umi steps out to check, someone suddenly drags her into the jungle, leaving behind only her desperate screams. 3 days later, honey collectors enter the forest and stumble upon a horrifying sight. Umi's severed head hangs from a beehive, with her phone shoved into her mouth. Sanja arrives at the scene and recalls seeing Umi earlier with the Malaysian girls. When she checks Umi's phone, she finds photos of Rashik, the tattooed man, and the local crime lord Agam, all connected to Umi. Soon after, news arrives that Malaysian police reported Umi had been caught 3 nights earlier at 11 p.m. in a white van, illegally trafficking several teenage girls. Umi is now dead, but while some of the girls are rescued, Esther and Lintang remain missing. Panka orders everyone to drop other cases and focus on finding the girls. However, instead of following that order, Sanja arrests Agam and learns that Umi, Rashik, and others were working under his command. Before further interrogation can continue, Panka tries to defend Agam, making Sanja realize that behind Agam's illegal operations, there is hidden support from within the police itself. Meanwhile, deep inside the jungle, we see Esther and Lintang wandering desperately in search of a way out. Lintang holds firm to her belief that the spirits of the forest will guide them to safety. In the midst of this investigation, another shocking revelation surfaces. Esther's own father had sold her to Agam. The moment Sanja learns this, she rushes to interrogate Agam at the station, only to discover that Panka has already released him. Furious, Sanja decides not to inform anyone and travels straight to Malaysia to arrest Agam herself. But there, Malaysian police stop her, explaining that Agam holds Malaysian citizenship. This means no Indonesian officer can arrest him without official permission. When Sanja blames Panka for the situation, Panka retaliates by filing an appeal to Jakarta, demanding that Sanja be replaced from the case. The next day begins with shocking news. Esther's father is found dead. Strangely, the people feel a sense of satisfaction at this outcome, believing that a man who sells his own child for money deserves such a fate. Yet within the Dayak community, a shadow of fear now spreads. During the search for the missing girls, Sanja meets Aram, who seems to be hiding a deep fear inside her heart. After reassuring her, Sanja asks what happened, and Aram reveals that on the night before crossing the border, they were kept inside an old factory. Because their eyes were blindfolded, she could not recognize the location. She then hands Sanja an ivory locket, explaining that she found it inside that factory. The moment Sanja sees the locket, she realizes it belongs to Juing. Determined, she sets out alone the next morning to the eerie palm oil factory hidden in the jungle, the same place Baran had mentioned earlier. As she investigates, her eyes fall on a food packet with today's date printed on it. But before she can dig deeper, an unknown assailant attacks her and throws her into a tank, causing her to lose consciousness. Meanwhile, Esther and Lintang discover a cave in the jungle and hide inside. But Lintang is horrified when she sees a pile of weapons and several decapitated bodies lying there. Terrified, she runs out in panic. Hours later, Sanja regains consciousness inside the tank. She tries to climb out, but the tank is too deep, making escape impossible. Desperate to survive, she screams loudly and bangs against the walls, hoping someone will hear. Time passes without her realizing how long she has been trapped, until suddenly she sees Thomas opening the lid. It turns out that Buran had heard her cries from the factory and quickly informed Thomas, which ultimately saves her life. By afternoon, heavy rain begins to fall, leaving them with no choice but to spend time talking at Buran's shop. During their conversation, Thomas reveals that he himself belongs to the Dayak community. Because he works with the police despite being Dayak, many locals despise him even more. At this moment, Sanja shares her own painful past. Before joining the police, her car was involved in an accident that killed a young girl. Since her father held a high position in the force, the case was suppressed. He never wanted his daughter's dream of becoming a police officer to be destroyed. Yet this incident haunts Sanja throughout her career, forcing her to battle her conscience every single day. Just then, a phone call arrives with grim news. Lintong's body has been found in the jungle, but Esther is still missing. Later that night, as Sanja heads home, she notices Thomas receiving money from Panka at the station, which raises her suspicions. The next morning, she goes alone to meet Buran, hoping to uncover hidden information. Meanwhile, Sanja's transfer letter finally arrives, yet the case remains unsolved. Hearing that she is scheduled to return to Jakarta the next day, Thomas visits her home. But Sanja points a gun at him, demanding to know the reason for his betrayal. Thomas admits that Panka had paid him to keep watch on her. Although he never revealed Sanja's visit to the factory, it becomes clear that the attack on her that day was orchestrated by Panka himself. The following day, Sanja meets with Silas. A strange determination grows stronger within her. She is convinced that Rashik, Juing, Umi, the tattooed man, Agam, and even Esther's father are all connected to the trafficking ring. But the question remains, who is the true killer? Perhaps it is Agam. Acting on this belief, Sanja and Silas abduct Agam and drag him into the jungle, preparing to kill him. At that moment, Agam confesses that the tattooed man's name was Ashraf. He had stolen Agam's money and fled, so Agam ordered Rashik to eliminate him. In the same way, Lintang became a victim to cover up his crimes. Yet Agam insists he had no role in Rashik's death. One day, someone unexpectedly sent him Ashraf's severed head. Fearing exposure, Agam burned it. This means that the unknown figure seen burning bodies in the jungle at the beginning was Agam himself. But the shocking question remains, if Agam is responsible for some of the crimes, then who is behind the rest of the murders? Meanwhile, Thomas, after working with Sanja for so long, realizes that she truly cares for her community and, at the very least, is not corrupted. Determined to uncover the truth, he decides to confront Panka. On the way back, Thomas secretly turns on his phone camera and, at gunpoint, forces Panka to confess about the attack on Sanja at the factory. This is where the shocking revelation comes. Panka has been involved with the border trafficking ring from the very beginning, receiving a large share of the profits. That is why the Dayak cases were never properly investigated. After recording the confession, Thomas handcuffs Panka. But at one point, Panka uses his ring to unlock the cuffs, causes a car accident, shoots Thomas, and orders Sanja's arrest for allegedly abducting Agam. Meanwhile, Silas, driven by revenge, pushes Sanja aside and escapes with Agam, but police quickly capture them. Sanja, watching from a distance, is suddenly struck from behind and loses consciousness. When she wakes up, she finds herself back at the factory, surrounded by fresh blood. Against a pillar sits Thomas's lifeless, headless body. Shock overwhelms her. Just then, she hears footsteps and turns to see the unconscious Esther. From within the fog, Buran's cold voice echoes. She will recover soon. Don't worry. Sanja stares in disbelief as Buran holds Thomas's severed head and has Panka tied up. When Sanja points her gun at him, Buran explains that he came to clean the factory and witnessed Panka beheading Thomas. This means the true culprit Sanja has been searching for his Panka. But when Panka tries to confuse Buran, Sanja hesitates, unsure whom to trust. As she keeps her gun trained on Buran, an unbelievable twist unfolds. Sanja notices a strange transformation in Buran. his body and voice begin to change. The truth emerges. Everything began with a trafficking ring along the Indo-Malaysian border, claiming countless victims. It all started with Ashraf, whose death Sanja learned about from Malaysian police, a fact Panka had hidden. Ashraf had stolen Agam's money, so Agam bribed Border Patrol Officer Rashik to kill him. Then came Juing, the Dayak activist who always opposed the trafficking ring. He too became Rashik's victim. But Juing's death was the most complex mystery. When the police failed to act, Buran, the respected elder, stepped forward. His frail appearance kept suspicion away, but in reality, he became possessed by the forest spirits. By the end of the film, we learn that Buran stored the bodies of his victims inside a jungle cave, the same cave Lintang accidentally discovered, sealing her fate. Seeking revenge for the Dayak, Buran beheaded Rashik and hung his head with Ashraf's body to mislead the police into connecting the deaths to the trafficking ring. Later, Umi became his target since she trafficked children for Agam. Even Esther's father, though a Dayak, had sold his own daughter, making him Buran's next victim. At this stage, when Sanja sees Buran holding a sharp weapon and tries to shoot, she falls into a strange trance. In an instant, Buran decapitates Panka. Fog thickens all around, visibility drops to nothing. Sanja runs with her gun, chasing Buran, but her body grows heavier. A chilling voice echoes, "Sanja, I don't want to kill you. You never wished harm upon the Dayak." I hope you have found all your answers today. As the fog grows denser, Sanja feels someone brush past her, leaving only a cold sensation, and then silence. Afterward, she rescues Esther and returns. With the final video found on Thomas's phone as evidence, Agam is arrested. In prison, he takes his own life, perhaps influenced by the forest spirits. Sanja never discloses the truth about Thomas. To the Dayak, she wants him remembered as an inspiration for future generations, something he always wished for. Time comes for Sanja to return to Jakarta, but at a crossroads, her car stops. A crowd is gathered around a tree. Curious, she steps forward and is stunned. Buran's head hangs from the branches. And with this haunting image, the movie Borderless Fog comes to an end. The film then takes us back to 1972, showing Buran as a child cleaning a blood-stained military boot by the river. During his conversations with Sanja, he had revealed that although he was Dayak, he spent much of his life supporting the military. In 1965, when communist influence was rising, the Indonesian government used the Dayak to crush them. Buran saved many from the trafficking ring, but the system he once served eventually turned against him. The communists had wanted every person to live freely, without illegal interference from government or military. Even today, the murders along the Borneo border remain a mystery, just like the borderless fog. Fog is not always just weather. It could be a weapon to conceal the truth. When a state ignores the cries of its people, invisible forces are born, forged from the tears of the oppressed, the blood of the betrayed, and the rage of the neglected. Borderless Fog reminds us that when justice is silenced, humanity itself creates monsters. So friends, how did you find today's video? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like.